I'm sure many of you out there remember playing the original Bubble Bobble port on the NES. I remember, and for a game with such an overly sweet disposition, I have to say that as a kid, I was a little embarrassed to play it. Well, not to play it, but that I liked it so much. Not only was it an overly sugary title, but the gameplay mechanics were hardly pushing the boundaries of game design. Here was a game where you went from single screen to single screen, and on top of that, every background was just black. As a kid, you always want your console to push boundaries. But there I was, transfixed to the CRT TV in my room, all the while the same music was playing throughout the entire game. This shouldn't have worked, but it did. Not only did the game succeed in a big way, it created a franchise empire, and today, we're going to be taking a look at one of its offspring in Bubble Symphony. So, without further ado, let's review.
Faulty PCB boards, cabinets that rot, and CRT monitors that go out. Arcade machines put through the ravages of time. Every day another one is lost to the sands of time. However, thanks to preservation methods, we have ways of rediscovering what could have been lost. But what was worth playing then? What is worth playing now? This is 20 Credit Review.
Did I say Bubble Symphony? My apologies. Some of you may know this as Bubble Bobble 2. What's that? There was already a sequel before this one called Rainbow Islands, the story of Bubble Bobble 2? Wait, what? Another one? On the NES called Bubble Bobble Part 2? They must all be the same game, right? Not at all. Let's take a look at the release timeline, beginning with the first one, which released the arcades in 1986. It was later ported to a massive amount of different platforms, including the aforementioned NES version that was developed by Taito. Taito being the original arcade developer. Then the next game came out in 1987 under the name Rainbow Islands, the story of Bubble Bobble 2. Well, that settles it, right? Rainbow Islands is a true sophomore entry. Not so fast. Rainbow Islands did feature the same characters, except that they were in their human forms and not in their Bubble Dragon forms. So technically, these are the same characters. So Bub and Bob as we know them here are the dragon forms, but Bubby and Bobby are the human iterations. Okay, cool. This game was also ported to the NES and a ton of other systems. But wait, the NES? That's where Bubble Bobble Part 2 was released. Yes, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. That title wasn't released till 1993, so Rainbow Islands was on the 8-bit console first. The next game in the series is Parasol Stars, the story of Bubble Bobble 3, which wasn't even released in the arcades, but instead made its debut on the TurboGrafx 16/PC Engine in 1991. There was a port of this version for Game Boy and NES that released in 1991. Okay, that has to settle it. Rainbow Islands is the true numerical 2 in the series. Well, maybe. Like I said earlier in this video, Bubble Bobble Part 2 was released for the NES and Game Boy in 1993, but this game featured Bub and Bob in their Bubble Dragon forms, although they were in their human forms for the intro cutscene before they were turned. Why did they do this? I have no idea. But that's not where this ends, because that's where we really begin. Talk about the game that is playing in front of us right now. It's now 1994, and a new entry in the storied and numerically convoluted Bubble Bobble franchise is about to release. It's called Bubble Symphony. Alright, no more numbers. That's correct, no more numbers in the US, Japan, and Europe. But worldwide? Well, this game goes by a different name, Bubble Bobble 2. Why? So that makes it the third time that a Bubble Bobble game has now been referred to as the original sequel. Yes it has. But I noticed something while researching for this topic. Rainbow Islands, the story of Bubble Bobble 2, is an alpha numerical number 2. Okay, Bubble Bobble Part 2 is referred to as Part 2, meaning that it is an immediate continuation of the first one, and finally Bubble Symphony or Bubble Bobble 2 ends in a Roman numeral 2. So what does this mean? It means that I have absolutely no idea, but I love to hear theories. What I can say, however, is that these characters are in fact not the original characters. They are named Bubblin and Boblin. Pretty close, but not the same. These two are the sons of the original Bub and Bob. So in fact, that could mean that the Roman numeral on the title is supposed to signify a second generation. But again, that is pure conjecture. Finally, let's get into the actual review. This game plays a lot like the original Bubble Bobble and Bubble Bobble Part 2, since you are back and controlling the Bubble Dragons, and this time they are accompanied by two female companions, Kululan and Kororan. And because you can select 4 different characters, then they all must play differently, right? Right you are. What changes from characters is how fast they are and the speeds and patterns that they blow their bubbles. Bubblin is the most well-rounded character, although the character select simply states that he is the most average of the bunch. Jeez, what a slap to the face. Boblin is actually faster, but the trade-off is his range, which is shorter. Kululan, on the other hand, has the longest range out of all of them, but she is slow. And finally we have Kororan, who has the fastest bubble-blowing skills. Okay, if you've never played one of the Bubble Bobble games, this is how the general rules go. Your character or characters will land on a stage and you'll be presented with a certain amount of enemies. Your job is to trap the enemies in bubbles, but there's one more step. You must pop the bubble that the enemy is in a set amount of time. If you fail to do so, the foe will escape, and when foes escape after being trapped, they generally come out enraged, indicated by their changed color scheme. This means they are much more aggressive, so that means that you want to pop the bubble as soon as you trap an enemy in it. Of course, every stage comes with a different layout, and certain layouts can make it difficult to get there in time, especially when there are other enemies on screen trying to impede your progress. One touch from one of them and you will find yourself respawning in the area that you began, and during that respawn period, your captured foe may have already escaped. Now, let's say that you do manage to trap almost all the enemies and popped all the bubbles that they are in. Well, if there is one remaining enemy, then that enemy will now become aggressive. And let's say that you take too long in completing the stage, well then some invincible ghostly thing will come after you. Fortunately, if you can avoid it and snag your last prey, then you will be forgiven and granted passage to the next stage. Okay, finally, let's imagine instead that you hit no snags during your playthrough of the stage. Well, every time you pop a bubble with an enemy in it, then an edible item will go flying and land somewhere on the level. You want to pick it up before it disappears. During the course of your play session, you may encounter bubbles that are filled with an item. These items can be water, electric bolt, and rainbows. Each of these powered up bubbles or grouping of said bubbles can help you beat a stage if you figure out how this item will help you win. These items can also act as a hindrance, since there may be such a big cluster of them that it makes it difficult to now traverse a level without becoming momentarily stunned with electricity or getting swept away in rushing water. Occasionally though, these special bubbles may be exactly what you need in order to pass a level, since enemies may be out of your reach due to level layout. So you want to learn how they react once popped early on to understand the mechanic of each one. You'll also want to understand them quickly, because this entry in the franchise has bosses, and you must use the special bubbles in order to take them out. Speaking of the bosses, don't be surprised to find some other Taito franchises making cameos in this game. Cameos like Pocky and Rocky, Space Invaders, and Darius, to name a few. Overall, this game, like the first game that I used to play as a child, has an addictive quality to it. However, if you are limiting how many credits you are using, like I do, be advised that you may want to practice on the boss characters, since they can sap your credits in no time. Part of the reason for this is that these characters take a fairly sizable amount of the screen up, and the stage layout that is presented to you doesn't really allow your character to be super agile while avoiding these big characters and their projectiles. There is a good chance that getting by on even 20 credits may be difficult, but the better you get at learning the boss movement and projectile pattern and which platforms on the boss stages will keep you out of the danger zone, then the better equipped you will be to progress towards the conclusion. Controls on this game are exactly what you'd expect with no surprises. Your avatars are not exactly agile, but they have enough maneuverability to get out of tight spots. You may also want to explore the different characters and choose the one that better complements your playstyle. Graphics in this game were absolutely mesmerizing. They are done in such a fun way and get even better when they mimic other Taito franchises. But besides the addictive gameplay, where I find this game towers over the previous entries is in the sound and music. The music is whimsically epic and brings to mind a theme park soundtrack, exactly what I want to hear with the action on screen. Like most of the other entries in this franchise, this is highly recommended. Although we never concluded which is a true number 2, it doesn't matter, as this is as fun as those that preceded it. Now, which part is a true part number 3? Okay, looks like that concludes our time with Bubble Symphony. If you have an affinity for old school arcade games or just retro gaming in general, then why not hit the subscribe button? There will be more on the way. And if you like this video, I could always use a thumbs up, so please let me know what you think. But most importantly, thank you so much for watching.